We are live for the second session in our festival in our Facebook group. How exciting. I am going to be super professional at all of these sessions by the end of this week. The amount of tech and different people flying in and out of the show that I've managed today so far, because I'm not just doing this on the Facebook group. I also did a summit at lunchtime all about purpose on LinkedIn, where we had 3 guests coming in and out, doing different things, talking at different times. So that was really exciting. So just getting over that. And now here we are again all together and talking about how to give ourselves permission to charge what we are worth. Now, if I think about money mindset, which is where today's guest joining us, Leslie, her expertise lies, I must admit I hadn't really thought about money mindset before maybe May time last year. And I was on a course and a bonus about money mindset came along, and I watched it and I kind of went, no, I'm all right about money mindset. That's fine. But there's so much more to it than just, am I okay with it? Am I not? And I suspect if Leslie and I were to dig a little bit deeper, I think we all have a little issues that we perhaps carry from childhood and limiting beliefs around money and how we behave with it. And of course, importantly, behaving well with our money in our own business is really, really critical to our business success. So I would like to introduce you to Leslie, who is the Money Mastery Business Coach. And as the Money Mastery Business Coach, Leslie works with female entrepreneurs to help them overcome limiting beliefs around money and develop a healthy, wealthy money mindset. And once those beliefs are turned around, of course, then the magic can happen in terms of sustainable and fulfilling business success. So hello, Leslie, and welcome to the show. Let's call it a show.
Hi there, Paula, and thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, and we've already got one viewer. Hi there, Victoria. Nice to see you. Yes, well, welcome to the show, and thank you very much for giving your time today to come and talk to us about how we have the right mindset to be able to charge our worth. So my first question to you, Leslie, because I think I've already shared, I struggled a little bit with this last year. What does money mindset mean?
It's essentially that little voice in our head that stops us from doing what we want to as a result of the limiting beliefs that have formed. And those limiting beliefs have been there since childhood as a result of the relationship our parents had around money and how we picked up on those messages. It may not have started as anything our parents directly said to us, but you know what children are like. We sit there with our ears kind of pricked and ready to pick up on any incoming messages. And it's the direct relation between self-worth, how we value ourselves, and how we judge ourselves based on the money story that we take through from our childhood into adulthood.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. And as you were saying that, something just popped into my head from my childhood, which was the age-old, money doesn't grow on trees. And I remember my dad, that hopefully he won't ever watch this back. I remember my dad saying to me when I was little, and I asked for support because mum and dad weren't together, could you help, with piano lessons? And he just said, Paula, money, I don't just have a little pot of money waiting there for you to ask for it. No, you can't have it. Yeah. But, that's always stuck with me, which is, I find very strange.
And That is a common theme that I hear with my clients. I hear it goes back to what they were either told they couldn't have as children, or what they believed they couldn't have as children. Because very often as children, we're quite intuitive, and we recognize when there are difficult conversations going on around us, and then we assume the information and decide whether or not it's something that we're going to believe and utilize, or something that we're going to discard. But so much of our relationship around money as adults is based on a money story that isn't our own. It's a money story based on our parents' beliefs around money. Things like, for example, as a child, did you have to wait until your birthday or Christmas time to have a bike? Did you have to wait till a special occasion to have new clothes, as opposed to when you've grown out of the old ones? And we very often will carry that same philosophy through with us into adulthood, and not believe we are worthy to have particular items unless it's a special occasion, or unless we're celebrating, even though we could very well have the affordability to have those things now. The message that we have attached to them comes from our childhood. And that is why very often I will say to my clients, our money story is the only story we bring through with us from childhood. We don't bring the story about Father Christmas. We don't bring the story about the Tooth Fairy. And we no longer believe that Ken and Barbie are living happily ever after in Miami. But why do we believe the story that our parents held about money when we were growing up, basically? And that is why it's so important to understand the difference between your parents' story and your own money story, and owning your own money story and the facts that are relevant to the life that you're leading, and the beliefs and the values that you hold, because they will have changed over time. It's so important to understand those and live your life by those beliefs, rather than ones that were handed to you when you didn't have any ability to do anything differently about them.
Natalie's joined us as well. Hi, Natalie. And
Hi,
just
Natalie.
saying, so true that what you just said about childhood, and never actually thought about it that way. And you know, she's absolutely right, Leslie. As you were saying that, then I was thinking all these sort of light bulbs are going off in my head, which I'm sure, you know, and Natalie's just attesting to, that our listeners will be, because you don't ever think about it in that way. And, you know, as you say, sort of standing up and owning your own story, not your parents' story, or not a significant influence at, you know, when you were young, their story, that, you know, having your own story and understanding your relationship with money and what you give yourself permission to do is a very different place to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And I think what a lot of people fail to recognize is the intrinsic relationship between money and self-value. And when you're running a business, your money mindset doesn't just affect your bottom line, it affects pretty much every decision you make about your business, how you go about branding it. Have you chosen a niche? If you haven't chosen a niche, why haven't you? Usually because if you have a limited money mindset, you believe you are limiting your opportunity, rather than seeing niching as the opportunity to rise above the noise, to be seen as the specialist in your field, rather than just another person who's trying to serve the general marketplace. When it comes to things like pricing, actually and we're going to be talking about this more, I know, but pricing should be about the transformation you are bringing for your client, not about the benefit and features of how that transformation occurs. Are you being visible enough in your business? Because again, if you are suffering with low self-esteem, low self-worth, the thought of going live into a Facebook group, going live on LinkedIn. There's nothing that you would hate more because of your concern about what people might say about you. Who are you to stand up and to teach people? Who are you to put yourself forward as the expert? That little voice in your head basically getting you to question your value and your worth. But as we know, if you're not visible in your business, all you're doing is gifting that visibility to your competitor to get in front of your ideal client. And that is why really coming to terms with your money mindset is so, so important to us as business owners, because it won't just affect your business, your bottom line, it'll affect everything that you do in your business.
Gosh, wow, that's I hope people are going to watch this back again with a notebook the second time, because there was an awful lot in that few minutes of you talking just there that helps us really understand how interconnected all of everything we do, all the decisions that we make are to our own money mindset. I mean, that's incredible, Leslie. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm just curious for now, how did you decide to niche into money mindset?
Well, for me, it kind of goes back to childhood and nothing directly linked to money. Well, I'll explain to you. So I was very fortunate. When I was growing up, my mum was full of what we knew then as positive mental attitude. So every time I put a limitation in front of me, so for example, I was only going to do 2 A levels. My mother, no, you're going to do 3. I was going to college. No, you're going to university. So my mum never, ever allowed me to accept anything other than absolutely the ultimate that I could achieve, basically. And as I grew older, I started to recognize that those around me didn't have the same confidence that I had, didn't have the same belief that I had. And the more I looked, I've always been interested in psychology, and I've always been interested in the power of confidence and being it till you believe it, because that is the power, of confidence. You're not always confident, but if you can act confident, you will then over time learn to be more confident. But I started to see a connection between confidence and money mindset and belief in the art of the possible in terms of what you believed was available for you. I didn't train as a business coach until last year. My first 20 years of my career was spent in corporate life. And then I coached informally and mentored informally. And then 10 years ago, I joined my husband in his business, and my entrepreneurial journey began. And I had lots of people, friends, peers, etc., come to me and say, how do you do it? How do you go about setting up a business? What do you need to know? How do you do this? How do you go live? How do you do webinars, etc., etc.? And I got more and more interested until the point last year I decided to train as a business coach. And money mindset was part of that training that I did with my coach out in America. And it was a very tiny part of what we did. And then we covered everything, all the business stuff you would expect to cover as a coach: branding, marketing, visibility, niching, packaging, pricing, etc., etc. But the more I thought about it and the more I studied it, the more I saw the connection between, if your mindset isn't right, and if you have self-limiting beliefs as a result of your money mindset, then it doesn't matter how perfect a business strategy might be for your business, you are never going to be able to implement it successfully and sustainably if you don't believe in the value of you and what you do and what you have to offer. So I took that interest in positive psychology, the small piece that we did on money mindset in that particular course that I did with my American coach, the course obviously that we both did together last year, that just reinforced it to a certain extent. But I recognized that actually it is the foundation of everything in terms of business success. So if you haven't got that foundation of your money mindset being rock solid, or the tools in order to create that foundation, then everything else will just be like a house, on sand, basically. Will be wobbly, will fall down, they'll have holes in it. And that is why I now do what I do. I do the traditional business coaching piece when required, but only once I've worked with clients on their money mindset. Because normally when they come to me and they say things like, I'm working hard, but I'm not making the money I want to. I know I've got, a good proposition, but for some reason it's not landing correctly, on my clients' ears, then actually that sets a flag off for me that said, let's look at what's going on up here first of all, before delving into your business, because I suspect the two are very, very closely interlinked. And so far, I have not found a client that actually it's their money mindset that needed the most work being done on it. When we go back into their business, they are then ready and happy to make those tweaks. There isn't the resistance there that would have been there, because they recognize if they continue to get in their own way, then they're never going to grow their business and hit the goals that they set for themselves. And that's why I did it.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And, such a compelling story, and as to why you wanted to niche into money mindset in the first place. And, I love the synergy with what I do, albeit not on money mindset. When I'm supporting leaders, I talk to them about those foundations, those building blocks that support you to be able to then go off and do what you want to do, whether it's building your confidence, or removing those limiting beliefs, and so on and so forth, as we support our clients. So it's lovely to hear you talk about that as a foundation, and how intrinsically linked it is to everything that we do and the decisions that we make. So I think that kind of sums up why it's important for us to think about money mindset in our businesses, as entrepreneurs. But as this is a business community that we're talking to today, is there anything else you'd like to add in what you've just said in terms of that importance of considering money mindset in your business?
Absolutely. And I think it's the holistic approach that is the important thing. It's not just considering money mindset as a block. So if we were looking at, a cobbled floor, money mindset is not just a block, in that cobbled floor. It actually is the foundation upon which everything else will sit. And we really need to analyze how our money mindset is affecting our own self-value, and our own self-worth. And if we just, if we link it back to the whole pricing conversation, very often people have trouble with that conversation because they link it to themselves rather than linking it to the client. It's nothing to do with us. It's all about the client's transformation, how we move them from A to B, and what the results will be. And I teach my clients how to get as comfortable with pricing as saying, pass the salt. For there to be no emotion in that conversation, it's as simple as saying, pass the salt. Because the emotion needs to be taken away. What you are doing is introducing your client to what is going to happen as a result of working with you. And conversely, what will stay the same if they choose to do nothing about whatever it was that initially drew them to have the conversation with you. And if we remove ourselves from the emotion of that conversation and purely focus on the results we're going to bring for our client, that is when the whole tone of the conversation becomes a much more relaxed one, becomes a much more deliberate one, and can talk about the art of the possible. Because that's why clients come to us. They want us to be able to provide them with the art of the possible. and talk about that transformation that we're going to take them on, rather than, and we're going to coach for an hour once a week, and I'm going to send you a workbook. They don't want to know any of that. What they want to know is how you are going to take them from where they are to where they're going to. And what they're looking for is the value that you're bringing and the value that they are placing on that transformation. And once you move the conversation to that level, that is when the real excitement can come, because clients really, really do want that transformation. There sometimes needs to be a little bit of persuasion if their limiting beliefs are actually, well, I'm never going to move from there to there. But that is why it's then important to have the conversation. So why did you book this call with me? What are you hoping the result will be? And then the converse of, so if you don't go ahead with me, what will be the result for you? And then that shift can happen. They can see, well, by moving forward with you, what is going to happen for them. By staying where they are, they're not going to move forward. And that's why being able to get more confident about the results you bring for your client, by being by taking things less personally and base it totally on the results, that's when that conversation can be as simple as, pass the salt, please.
I love that. Pass the salt, please. It's such a simple way to describe it. And I talk a lot about removing the emotion from things with my clients, because it makes things messy for people. It makes them unable to see clearly and focus on that, going from where they are now to where it is that they truly want to be. And this comes up in difficult conversations that we have to have as leaders of our own business and leaders of ourselves. If you step back and you plan ahead and think about what's going to be said and the end result that you need to achieve through that difficult conversation, then removing that emotion makes that absolutely possible. So what you're describing there, Leslie, is just music to my ears, because, and you've just reminded me, I delivered a brilliant workshop at the beginning of last year called The Art of the Possible. I forgot about that.
What synergy? What synergy?
So, there, it was meant to be. What can I say?
Absolutely.
In fact, I've had a couple of serendipitous moments today. How funny. So tell us then, what are the sort of most common reasons that clients will seek you out? Because, if I think about this, an issue that I might be facing in my business, for example, I wouldn't necessarily know that it was a money mindset issue I was having. So how do I understand that it would be you that I would come to? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. No, absolutely. I think it's because, all my messaging relates to the holistic approach. So it doesn't just talk about money mindset. It talks about the impact that a negative money mindset can have, be that on your branding, have you niched, how you're pricing, your visibility, putting packages together, your marketing messages, etc., etc. And in everything I do, with regards to networking, my message on social media, I keep linking it back, basically. So my visibility is very much about the connection, the fact that visibility, problems with pricing, not putting boundaries in place. That's another big issue for people with money mindset. So all of those things, clients will come to me. I've started to get a bit of a reputation as the money lady. So I've had clients come to me, so I've been referred to you because you're the money lady, and I'm looking at ways to generate more money in my business, or I recognize that I don't understand how to leverage what I'm doing in my business more effectively. So it usually starts off with a conversation about money in one form or another, and clients recognizing that they are getting in their own way. Because I think we all recognize when that little voice is saying to us, no, don't press live. No, don't go and have that conversation with that difficult client, because twice in a row now they've turned up half an hour late, or they've cancelled, at the last minute. We all very often recognize when we're trying to shy away from a difficult conversation or doing something that we're not comfortable with. And, you know, what I have done is to remind people that none of these things are isolated. They all link back to a theme. And that theme normally is, we know in the pit of our stomach when we should be doing something for our greater good or our business's greater good. And we try to quell that feeling in the pit of our stomach rather than going, okay, I know it's not, you know, it's a little bit like when the alarm goes off, you know, 5:30 in the morning, because you're due to meet your PT, your personal trainer, and you kind of go, do you know, I'd rather roll over in bed. But actually, we know we meet the personal trainer halfway through that session. We're like Atlas, we're holding up the world because we feel so good. And it's exactly the same, you know, with what I teach my clients. It won't be easy, but by God, will it be worth it? Because we all know on the other side of difficulty, there is that growth. There's that transformation. And it's so tangible when you start to think about it. That is when clients are able to almost push that negative voice out the way in the stampede to get onto that feeling of, I've done it, I've cracked it. I recognize it was painful to do, it was uncomfortable to do, but actually look at the benefits. And that is what, you know, I try to bring out in my clients, is that feeling they're going to get as a result of understanding what they won't get if they continue to hold themselves back.
Oh, it's so lovely to hear you talk about it, and the passion that you have for what you do really comes across, Leslie. And it's such an important piece of the jigsaw puzzle, really, to get our money mindset, in this case, in the right place so that everything else follows that. So how is it that you then help your clients to unblock those limiting beliefs that relate to the money issues in their business?
Well, it starts off by helping them to understand where they've come from in the first place, because as Natalie said, not everybody understands that, you know, their relationship with money goes back to the relationship their parents had when they were children. So it's to understand where those limitations are, how they are affecting their lives today, both in terms of personally, with any relationships, but also professionally in terms of their business. And then I have a number of tools and exercises that I take clients through to start to help them to have that internal conversation and to turn around that internal conversation. And usually, once we recognize what not doing something will cost us, that is when we're prepared to do the work, to make the change, to actually see the result at the end of it. You know, again, you know, an exercise and diet analogy, it always works so well in coaching, doesn't it? But it's a little bit like, you know, going on a diet and recognizing you've got to cut cakes, you know, out of your lifestyle, basically. And yet there's a blueberry muffin there with your name on it on a Friday night, and you've got to decide, is the feeling of eating that blueberry muffin going to be better than the feeling of actually breaking the plan, the agreement you had with yourself in terms of a healthy eating plan? Normally eating that cake will give you that momentary, oh, it's great. We all know that crashing down feeling of, oh, it's broken my diet. And you're more cross with yourself for that. And it's exactly the same with what I teach my clients, that the pain, the anticipation of how you're going to feel once you have done something, once you have conquered it, once you've gone live on LinkedIn for the first time, once you've had that uncomfortable conversation with a client, once you've increased your fees because you recognize you've been over delivering and undercharging, all of that is a layering effect that just bolsters your self-confidence and your real belief in yourself more and more and more. And I see my job as layering that confidence so that clients can move forward with the evidence, because our subconscious requires evidence to know that what we're doing when we're changing course is not going to end up with us really doing harm to ourselves. So the more we can layer up that evidence, the more our subconscious supports us, the quieter that negative voice gets. But until that negative voice starts getting quieter of its own accord, I teach clients how to turn down the volume on the quiet voice, turn down the volume on that negative voice and turn up the volume on that positive voice. And then after a while, the reinforcement that occurs means it starts to happen naturally. You start to get more excited about the art of the possible, and you start to find a way to step around those boulders that we have put in the road for ourselves. Because that is the thing. We have put that boulder in the road. And what I do is teach clients how to step around it, how to absolutely avoid it, and in future be in a road where there are no boulders, or if they are, they're very small and you know how to deal with them.
And I suspect that is a huge moment of elation and relief for people when they get to that point.
It is, but it's a process, I think. It isn't a kind, and it's not a one and done. You know, with your money mindset, it isn't a one and done. It is a case of you can see improvements all the time, but more importantly, you get the tools so that when a setback occurs, you know how to deal with it. So you're not set back to point zero. You're just set back a few steps. You know how to pick yourself up, shake yourself down, and then move forward from where you are.
It's that sort of 2 steps forward, 1 back, 2 steps forward, 1 back.
Exactly.
And I love you know, to hear you talking about evidence. Evidence can be really powerful tool in our sort of how we set our mindset, you know, and I talk a lot about fixed and growth mindset with my clients. Now, I won't go into that now, but having that evidence to show that you were able to achieve something in the past. And a great question came up earlier, actually, was, do you ask your clients to give you evidence of when they couldn't do it in the past? And actually, in your case, Leslie, when you're trying to get them to think about how money mindset has held them back, that probably is something that comes up fairly often. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. I think, you know, very often, and very, very often it'll come up without even asking the question, to be honest with you. There will be something that has triggered a client. They'll go quiet, and I'll ask them, you've gone quiet. What are you thinking about? You know, what's just happened? And they'll say, I've just remembered this particular incident when I was younger, and I'd forgotten about it for a long period of time, but you've just reminded me. And sometimes, as a result, clients will get very, very emotional because, as you know, when we have something negative that happens to us, so it might be a bad presentation, it might be a bad, we've given a bad interview or whatever, we will try and bury it. But something will happen that will trigger that memory, and whoosh, you're right back in the moment of how you were feeling. I get that, when I go on holiday, I always bring a new shampoo with me on holiday. So the next time, I'm at home and I kind of want to recall that holiday feeling, I'll get that shampoo out and instantly I'm back on holiday again. And I think that is, it's the negative, it's the reverse of that with a negative, with a money mindset story that triggers something. But when you recognize what that trigger is, and whether or not what you're feeling is legitimate now or was even legitimate in that moment, because very often we can build up a story that actually has no evidence to being real or being true. We have just created that because I read something last week, 95% of what we worry about never comes true. So we spend 95% exactly thinking about what if, oh gosh, this is going to happen. What happens if actually it doesn't happen? And it's exactly the same with money mindset. You start worrying about what happens if I go live? What happens if I ring that client? What happens if I put my prices up? Rather than thinking, what could happen if I have a really successful conversation with that client? What happens if people love my prices and they recognize my value? What happens if I deliver a fantastic Facebook Live presentation and people really see what I'm all about? And I think that is part of it, is actually the art of the possible is always something possible, not the art of the impossible. And I think that is the context. It's a little bit like how we speak to our children. You know, if our child comes up to us and says, "Mummy, I want to be an astronaut," we don't go, "Well, that's stupid. How on earth can you ever be an astronaut?" But that's the conversation we have with ourselves. You know, we say, how dare I want to have more? How dare I think I'm going to be successful at doing what I do? But we would never do that to our children. And that's the conversation we need to have with ourselves, that nurturing conversation, the looking, you want to be an astronaut? Okay, go and Google what you need to be an astronaut. Now, remember, you need to be good at maths and physics. So always pay attention in class when you've got maths, etc., etc. And it needs to be that same conversation that we have with ourselves, speak to ourselves as though we were our very best friends, rather than putting ourselves down. And once we start to understand that, that really is when the magic happens. And that's really when our subconscious supports us in the actions that we need to take to move us out, to move ourselves forward positively.
And it's that lovely reframe from the negative to the positive. And, you know, as you say, being our own best friend, taking some of our own advice. You know, I was talking earlier about quieting our advice monster. You know, when the person starts talking and like 2 sentences in, you're there like, I've got to say what I've got to say, because the advice monster's there going, tell them what you're thinking, you know. And it was a beautiful TED talk by Michael Bungay Stanier, who's very impressive, and wrote the book The 7 Coaching Habits. So, you know, really, really good fun book to read. But he talks about, you know, quieting that voice. In this case, what we're saying is encourage that internal voice for you, not necessarily for everyone else, because you do that naturally when you're asked to help support a friend with advice and so on. But giving that advice and that beautiful word, nurturing conversation with yourself, because that is when, as you say, the magic starts to happen, and you really do start to understand how you can support yourself to change that story, change the negative into the possible, the positive, and then begin to see what's possible.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yes, you and I, we speak off the same page without a shadow of a doubt.
We definitely do. We definitely do. So we're sort of coming to the end of our time together, Leslie, and I could probably talk to you all day, but what couple of things, if you were going to think of a couple of tips to share with the people that are listening today, on how to really self-help in terms of their money mindset before they come and work with you, of course, on it, to really get it licked and into the right shape, what would you share with them?
I think the first thing to do is to have a go at trying to understand where your self-limiting beliefs reside. So I always say to my clients, you know, in the early days of working together, write down 3 to 5 limiting beliefs you know you have around money. Then write 3 to 5 more. Because in the 3 to 5 more, you're digging a little bit deeper, because there's that surface stuff. But by sitting there and spending some quiet time reflecting, then take those limiting beliefs and turn them into the positive, because that is where you see the art of the possible. So that's one thing. Something really powerful that I do every year on the 1st of January, I send myself a letter to my future self in 12 months' time, congratulating myself on everything that I will have achieved in the coming 12 months. That letter arrives on the 1st of January. Now, I I obviously know, and if I email it to myself via a website called futureme.org, and you can put any time frame in, any date you want to. So you can do it for next week, next year, 5 years time. I always choose the 1st of January. For a start, that letter holds you accountable because you know the content essentially of what's in there.
Yeah.
So you know this is going to arrive, and do you really want to open it up and go, nope, didn't achieve that, nope, didn't achieve that, nope, didn't achieve that? Or would you rather open it up and go, oh, wow, I nailed it, I had a fantastic year. Now, obviously, the letter that arrived for me on the 1st of January this year wasn't quite as I planned my year to be, given I
wonder why.
Exactly.
Why.
But at the same time, I was still really pleased at what I had achieved. And part of that was I knew the letter was coming, and I didn't want to be giving a series of excuses. Oh, we know why I didn't do that. Oh, we know why I didn't do that. So that is really good as well. As a visual tool, what I find works really nicely as well is to draw an avatar or a stick person, because I'm rubbish at art. Draw a stick person and give it a negative name. So Negative Nelly is what I call mine. And give Negative Nelly all the negative money mindset traits that you can think is possibly to have. Then draw another stick person or avatar and give it a positive name, Positive Polly, and give her all the positive characteristics that somebody with a really positive money mindset would have. Then when you start to hear that negative voice coming into your head, you can almost imagine Negative Nelly running up onto your shoulder, trying to lean up and whisper into your ear, and then coming up across the other shoulder and down over your neck, you can see Positive Polly coming along, shoving Negative Nelly out of the way, and Positive Polly is ruling the day. It works to have that kind of visual image because you start taking yourself less seriously, but you recognize that negative voice is going to start turning up the volume. And what starts to happen, the more you do that, the sooner you anticipate the negative voice is going to start, and you beat it down, you flick it out the way even before it's had the ability to say very much. And the final one I would say is, I do a version of, Mel Robbins brought out a book called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So your alarm goes off in the morning, you're tempted to hit snooze, but rather than hitting snooze, you count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, whoosh, you're out of bed. Now, I still have 4 seconds there to change my mind, is the way that I look at it. So what I say to clients now is, we don't count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. As soon as you have that feeling in the pit of your stomach that you should be doing something, you do it on 1. So every one of my Facebook Lives, of which I've done 3 so far, I have literally gone, LinkedIn Live, StreamYard, done. I literally do it on 1 because I know LinkedIn for me is the one place where I start to get a little bit nervous, a little bit uncomfortable about going live. I recognize that limiting belief in me. But rather than give myself the chance to go, not today, your hair's not looking right, or you're a little bit warm, or what you're going to say, I don't allow that. As soon as in the pit of my stomach, I have that feeling, LinkedIn Live today, Leslie, whoosh, StreamYard, done. So I would say either if the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 works for you, do it. But in my case, 4 seconds to talk myself out of it. So I just go on 1. Just go. I might even write a book about it. Just go on 1.
I think that's. I definitely feel a book brewing. Just go on 1. I love it. Oh, brilliant! And on that happy note, now just to let everybody know watching that Leslie is a member of our fabulous business community group here on the Natural Entrepreneurs Hub. So if you do want to connect with her and learn a little bit more about how she could help if you're experiencing issues, in terms of money mindset, then please do reach out to her directly. People feel very sensitive about money issues, so nobody needs to know. You can do that personally. If you do need a direct contact through me, given that we're both coaches and bound by the code of ethics and confidentiality, then please feel safe to do that through me as well. But Leslie, it's been absolutely incredible. I've learned an awful lot today about how specific money mindset is, and whilst we're applying all of the same tools and techniques to what we do, working through limiting beliefs, looking at evidence, all of those things, and that positive, I call it inner guru and inner critic on your shoulders, and you're talking about negative and positive, similar kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're doing it for, in very specifically different areas to help support our clients. And it's so interesting to see a different perspective and how you do that with yours. So thank you so very much. I'm going to stay on just for a couple of minutes and share what's coming up tomorrow with everybody, because we are through day 1. Can you believe it, of the festival already? I know. I made it. I'm still live. And my voice hasn't given up, although maybe by the 6th session on Thursday, we might be having a different conversation. Fingers crossed.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it, and good luck with the rest of the festival, even though I know you don't need any luck whatsoever.
Oh, thank you, Leslie. It's been an absolute pleasure. So I will just pop you out of the... still getting used to the technology. Remove you, as it's called, from the broadcast. It sounds very final, doesn't it? Thank you, and I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, take care.
So just to say thank you again to Leslie, who was absolutely brilliant and shared some amazing insights around money mindset there. And you know how to get in touch with her if you would like to talk about that further. But just to share with you a couple of things about the festival. It's been so lovely just today even to share all the value that we've got through the sessions today. And that was my session this morning, where Andrew interviewed me on leading, how to lead you and your business to success. Now on the money mastery session with Leslie, but it would be remiss of me not to share what I do and how I do it, and how I could perhaps support you in your business entrepreneur's journey as well. And I've been told on many occasions by clients that I'm quite calm in my approach, very natural in the way that I talk about things, and often get told, oh, well, you really help me feel better and calmer when I think that everything's gone, what's the word? The baby's gone out with the bathwater, perhaps, is a good analogy. So it is nice to hear that, but it's part of what I love to do in terms of that style, why I'm called the natural leadership coach, apart from other reasons too, which I talked about this morning, in that natural approach. But, helping people, challenging them to think about what could be possible, and the art of the possible, what we've just talked about with Leslie, that they wouldn't dare to believe is possible for themselves, because they've just not given themselves enough credit. They don't have the confidence to go for it. They haven't got the self-belief, all of those things. So how do I help people get over these things and move forwards and lead themselves and their business to success? I have lots of different ways, of course, but one of the things that I've created in my work is the 5 R's framework, taking you from realizing you need that support to getting the results that you really want. And there's some re-energizing, some refocusing, and some recalibrating along the way, hence the 5 R's. Now, my Realization to Results group coaching program, of course, is really structured around that framework. But for the rest of my coaching, I like to pull in elements of it as needed, dependent on what the particular client needs. And we talked about this earlier, I love helping my clients lay the foundations that help them lead themselves and their business to their version of their vision of success. And I do this by helping them to connect with their purpose, understand what matters to them, set their vision, and the goals that support that vision, and make the plan and decide on the actions that get them to the results that they really want. So I have lots of different programs, some on purpose, the Realisation to Results group program that I talked about. And if connecting with your purpose is one of the things you want to talk about, happy to have a chat about that too. But for now, I'm opening slots on my one-to-one On Point program, which is all about one-to-one coaching and supporting you, giving you some thought partnership and some support in your business. So if you would like to talk to me about that, I will put the links under here to book in for an On Point realization call, so that we can chat about what working with me on Point might do for you and your business. Now, that's it for today. A huge thank you again to Leslie. Absolute delight to chat. And as I said, we could probably have talked all day about money mindset and coaching and all of that. So an absolute pleasure. But really grateful for the insights and guidance that she shared. And a couple of things before we go. A quick reminder that if you haven't already signed up to the Business Festival, please do so. Again, I'll put the link below, because you will then get all of the replays emailed to you in one go on Friday once all the festival is over. And then at the end of at the end of it, you will get everything. But secondly, and importantly, don't fret. We've got 4 sessions to go still. So 2 tomorrow and 2 on Thursday. And tomorrow morning, I'll be joined by David Charlton, who's sports psychologist and podcaster on demystifying mental toughness, as we look at how to build mental toughness in your business. So I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow at 10 a.m. For now, have a great evening and thank you for listening.